Yes, my people, welcome back to another episode of the Where's My podcast. I got a confession to make and I need you guys to bear with me. So the first about 7 minutes of the audio got a bit messed up. Yeah, but don't worry, the rest of the episode sounds perfect. We thought maybe it would be best to just kind of re-record the intro, but I said, you know what, technical difficulties happen, so let's still put it out. And also, it happened to Stephen Bartlett on Diary of the CEO, so if it happened to him, it could happen to anyone. So, but yeah, man, you're gonna see we were joined by Jack Harper in this episode. It was a sick episode. I know you're gonna learn a lot, but yeah, that's just a quick one from me. Enjoy the episode. Yes, my people, welcome back to another episode of the Where's My podcast. And as you would have noticed, we're in a different place today, and that's because of the guests we're with. Kindly, the guests we're with has allowed us to shoot in their studio, and I'm really excited for the conversation today. We're joined by Jack Harper, founder of the brand Eliza. Jack? I'm good, bro. I was going to say welcome, but obviously, thanks.
Welcome to my studio.
Jack, you're the clock for watching the pod and that. When the pod starts, I just speak for like a minute or two about why you're in your seat, where with the guests, or why I'm talking to you. And bro, there's a number of reasons, man. I remember I was even speaking to Rash about it the other day. Like, we see a lot of brands, but when I first came across your brand, it stood out to me in the sense that the message was so pertinent. Like,
I've never heard that word before.
Seriously?
Nah, but I rate it. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend I'm the most savvy. I got a C in GCSE English.
But yeah, like pertinent in the sense that it just resonated with me and stuck with me as soon as I saw it. Like, more so because at first it was quite ambiguous to me.
Yeah.
And I had to do more sort of, I don't know if research is the right word, but I had to stay tuned to kind of find out what the actual message is. And through speaking to you and following the brand and seeing the garments, I feel like I've got to that point. And I'm excited to kind of give you the opportunity to speak about what the brand really, really, really represents. Like, I'm really excited for that because when we've had conversations about it before, we've gone into depth, bro.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that today, man. And
nothing but depth on my side,
bro, nothing. And I feel like our audience especially are going to be edified. Shags will laugh at that. Be edified from hearing the things that you're going to say today. Do you know what I mean? Because you do put a lot of thought and a lot of yourself into your brand. And I think that's important that's just important within fashion. But yeah, we go back and forth with that.
No, it's like, I'm grateful that you want me on here and I want to be here as well. And like, obviously with Eliza being so contextual and my practice in general being highly contextual, it's hard to completely translate that over a variety of social media formats. And sometimes it does take an article, sometimes it does take a podcast to really get the message across, you know? But obviously, like, you need the opportunity and the right platforms to, you know, give you that.
100%. You need the right mediums to get that message across. And even without those sort of mediums, I think you do a great job at doing so. And I'm going to ask you questions about the thought process that goes into articulating that message.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jack, thanks for having us, man.
Thanks for having me.
So yeah, for me, there's only one place to start. Prior to talking about where the fashion journey started, I just want to talk about Jack. Like, who is Jack? Where do you come from?
So, like, how far are we going back?
Up to you, mate.
No, tell me.
Oof. I want to go from the jump, like, because whilst we're talking, Jack, I want to see how fashion kind of comes into
it kind of does make sense. So, like, I'll kind of, the start of it, I'll be quite, like, sparse with, and then it does get, in a sense, more in depth. So, I'm from Brixton Hill, London. My mum was born and raised here. My mum's a single mum, so on and so forth. My ends were quite bad. And, like, I guess I had, like, some family problems, internal family problems, and, like, because my mum was from here, there was just like the urge to leave, and an opportunity arose where we ended up moving to Brighton when I was 8 years old. So between the age of 8 and 16, I was there, and it was it's a very interesting experience. I mean, like, I at heart feel like a Londoner, but like you do get shaped a lot by your teenhood, and a lot of like my values definitely come from being brought up there at that point in time, and that definitely will go back into like the influence of that into when we talk about the fashiony bit. So yeah, and then I got when I finished school, I got a scholarship at Brit School, which is in South London. My dad lived in Croydon, so there was like an opportunity to move to my dad's to then study there. So I would like be in London in the week, and then in the weekends I'd go back down to Brighton to live with my mum. So that was it, and then I got into Chelsea College of Arts to study graphic design communication. I was there again like for 3 years. I'm an August baby, and I like didn't do A levels. I did like a BTEC. So like luckily I like kind of streamlined through education reasonably quickly. Like I graduated university at 20, so I've been
what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for some people that I was the youngest. I was the youngest in my year because like most people in my course did foundation degrees. But for most art courses do that. Especially depending on like the I guess like the quality and prestigiousness of the course, and Chelsea graphic design was probably I think like the second best in the world at that point alongside Parsons. So yeah, I worked hard, like I was lucky to get in, but I'm also worked fucking hard to get in. So yeah.
Just want to backtrack a bit, Jack.
Sure.
You spoke about how was it at the age of 16 when you were able to go to the Brit School and that?
Yeah.
And obviously at this point you were between London and Brighton.
Yeah.
Like even not necessarily from like a fashion standpoint, but more from like a cultural standpoint almost. What were the main differences between the South and
I mean, I'll tell you how I felt then, because like how I feel about it now is very different to how I like feel then at that point. Like I think as I've gotten older, I acknowledge the differences more, but that just comes with like being an adult. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I can only have the perspective of a teenager. I guess like aesthetically, I thought people were very different. Something I used to think a lot is like I used to always find it weird seeing girls wear Air Maxes.
Where did the girls wear Air Maxes?
In London. Okay. I swear no one in Brighton at this point was wearing Air Maxes. Like there would be some people, but like the vague few.
Okay.
I think like
the trendy ones.
If I remember correctly, like you're either like indie or townie.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of those terms before?
I've heard indie, but not townie.
Yeah, it was like town. Like that's what I mean. It wasn't like subculture. It was either indie or townie, and I guess like indie was like indie music, and townie was like popular culture, hip hop, rap, grime, so on and so
makes
forth.
sense.
So I guess I definitely lent more into indie, but like indie also covered say like skate culture and stuff. And I remember when I lived down there was a new skate park that opened called Hove Lagoon and stuff, and like I was shit at skating. Like I could go down like a free step and that, but then I had like one accident. I just like it put me off for life. And but like I guess like I love the culture around it. Like my like influence in fashion was more. Sorry, to go back to the previous point. Guys used to wear more Vans, Eastpak bags. Do you know what I'm saying? It was more like LA skate centric. It wasn't
in Brighton, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. There's two major skate parks. It's the coast. It's a coastal city.
Do you know what I find so interesting about Jack? Not to say that was kind of fashion forward, but I do feel like skate culture became a massive part of. I don't know whether to use the word popular fashion, but it became the drip at a point. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
sure.
Is that why your perception on the difference between Brighton and London kind of changed as you got older?
Yeah, because I mean, being older is a different thing. I think being older, I started to think more about like the mindset of people. But when I first came back here, the initial thought was definitely like a visual thing, and it was like, what did people wear, you know? And in Brighton, there's a massive culture of like vintage. There's an abundance of vintage stores there, and they weren't gentrified as such, so like the prices to get vintage clothing was very low. Like I can tell you at a point I probably didn't own a t-shirt and owned shirts, like vintage Hawaiian shirts. But like if you saw someone wear a vintage Hawaiian shirt here, you'd think they're like a hipster from Shoreditch. And
exactly.
And it's something about it that kind of feels a bit corny.
Yep.
Where in Brighton it's not. It's actually very normal.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of weird how your perception of things change when you're in different spaces, you know. And that was my earliest kind of like acknowledgement of it. So like when I was younger, like fashion to me and my interest was the hundreds, staple design. There was a brand called Trainer Spotter, which is hard. There was American. There was a thing at school where everyone American Apparel opened a store, which sounds like shit now, innit? But back then, like they were like the only brand that had like the the staple pieces, but like in every colorway.
Okay.
So like everyone at school would have an Eastpak bag, but it depended what color you got to get it to be cool. And then like everyone would have like a zip hoodie from American Apparel, and they would all be different colors. It was kind of like, it was like subtle ways to break the code of the school uniform.
For me, that kind of, I don't know if Brighton had like the Hollister wave as well.
It did.
Yeah.
I had a Hollister shirt once, and I'm fucking embarrassed by it.
No, we all did. Don't worry, bro.
Yeah.
But you know what, Jack? Yeah, I'm quite happy you're saying this because I feel like in London we're very. I don't want to call us all pretentious when it comes to these things, but we feel like London is the only place that's cool to a certain degree. And I wouldn't say it's the whole of the UK, but we look at it like...
For sure, but it's more like cool is a perception of relevance. So I've had like multiple experiences which kind of help me like think differently about it. Like funnily enough, like I used to like go Paris a few times for like work, and to be honest, I would say like London and Paris are quite similar, but Paris is definitely like on the more like luxury high end, like people live it a lot more. And I actually kind of think that's a good thing because there's something less fake about it. When I go to LA, man, like trucker caps is a thing from the get go for a very long time, you know, where here it's a bit more of like an appropriated aesthetic. Not to say that's wrong, it's just, man, like trucker culture is not a thing here as such.
Yeah.
I used to personally get really cringed out when I would see people wear like leather pants and like Armani shirts and shit. I can't tell you why. I'm just saying how I felt at this point.
Yeah.
Like definitely like had like my hater phase.
Yeah.
But then I went to Rome for the first time 2 years ago. Oh my god, it looks fire. It looks so good. Like because in like the space and the environment it is, like you've got these old rustic buildings. Rome's very historic, obviously, we all know that, and the aesthetic and the clothing that people wear like lend to the space, you know, like space is as important, and that appropriates the clothes that you wear, you know. It's kind of like my favorite artist is Joseph Albers, and he's like he does paintings based around color theory, and so he will have like a little red square in a big black square, and like you think about horror and anguish and blood, but then you have a little red square in a big white square, and then like your perception of it is completely different. So like take that idea and personify it. So like that little square is you, and that big square is the environment you're in. So like how would you look wearing what you're wearing right now in the Cotswolds?
Oh my gosh, don't call me a roadman. They actually would.
Exactly. Yeah. Versus wearing it in Shoreditch.
Yeah, I think I'd fit in, especially with a peach on my head.
My point being is that perception will change of you because of the environment you're in.
100%.
And so like therefore cool is kind of like redefined.
Yeah.
Cool in Cotswolds will be different to what cool is in London.
So in regards to all of this, would you say that was one of the benefits of experiencing both London and Brighton, because you had kind of different definitions of what quote unquote cool is?
I wouldn't say I give a fuck about what cool was. I just like what I like, but obviously you're naturally influenced by your environment. If I lived in LA for a long time, would I wear trucker caps and would I feel fine to wear it? Probably. Because I'm just saying that's me, you know.
So what would you say the main benefits were then of having that duality? Do you know what I'm saying? Because most of us
it's just I guess it's just offering a different perspective to like my peers when I came here, you know, because here every place has, everyone's biased. Every place has biasness, and like including myself, is that I was fixed in a certain way at a certain point. But then like when I would put myself in a different environment, your peripherals open, but that's because I'm willing to be open to it. I'm not that stubborn, you know. Like I'm not from a council estate from Brixton. But I'm not like boxed in by that. Yeah, which is important. And I'm never boxed in by my environment. I just, it helps me grow and have like a more unique opinion or standpoint or taste, however you want to frame it.
Do you know what, Jack? Yeah, I think this is a good segue to kind of go back to your university experience.
Sure.
Because the way you described the institution you went to, what do you say, Chelsea College of Arts? Yeah, Chelsea College of Arts. For me, that screams prestige, screams class. And obviously, being a young man from a council estate in Brixton, then moved to Brighton and whatnot. What was your experience? What was your experience like in university then, in terms of being around that type of person?
So what? Okay, first off, that's funny that you say that. So what type of person do you think Chelsea College of Arts attracts?
Upper middle class people.
Not really.
So what type of people does that attract?
Like a mix, like a very like to be honest, like I got into CSM as well. I got into a few places. I tried to, my dream was to go to SVA in New York.
What's SVA?
School of Visual Arts. Like, because I back then I was more into like painting and illustration. That was my love. I loved fashion, but like I was more into like the prints on the t-shirt rather than like
That
garment making.
Yeah.
And that, like that, me being a fan of the 100 and stuff at that point made sense because everything was highly graphic. There was, Size.
Yeah.
So like Size, I'm not sure if it was always owned by JD Sports, but like Size was the main streetwear store in Brighton, and then there was a store called Route One, and there was a store called Select Store, and it all
Select,
they all had like Select Store and Route One were more like skate centric. Size was like the more major city, but it did lend to like the environment of skatewear culture, which was streetwear, So yeah, I was more into that, but like illustration and painting was more my thing. I was a massive fan, and I still am, of like Keith Haring, for example, Basquiat, Picasso. Very pop culture references, but like that's what I was introduced to as a younger. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. So would you say that in terms of your university experience, like because it was so mixed, you kind of just fitted right in?
No, I wouldn't even say that either. I find it like I think university is just like a place where you get put into a space of such a plethora of people that it's quite weird. Like, there's definitely like the upper middle class people. Like there was definitely some people that were just stupid, dumb, rich, but there were definitely people from ends, like people like myself, and like I could tell you like some people like who you remember 808 Inc. You don't know who 808 Inc is? Okay, we're gonna like take that out.
Why? Who's 808 Inc?
808 Inc is like they were like a group that. Have you never heard the song Sway Jaw before?
What the hell? I don't know. I do not listen to this music.
You know what I'm on about?
Rash, do you know who 808 Inc are? Exactly.
We cannot put this in.
No, yes, we can, because a lot of the listeners are going to know who 808 Inc are as well.
Okay, mad. Anyway, basically, like there was just like quite a few people that I knew, like who I still know now, like, but they're in kind of like a similar environment to me. They're great, like great people in it. So, but I guess like my point is that there is in some senses like a very diverse demographic that you find in university. Like there's people from the north of the country, there's people from like different parts of the world. Like my girlfriend at the time was from Korea, but lived in Vancouver. It's like you meet a lot of people, and it's exposing because you're deliberately put into a place where you're not really around the environment that you're used to. But I don't think I ever was, because I've moved a lot. So I'm a Londoner by technicality, but at this point I felt like I was more from Brighton, and London was a new place. But I had so many like, I guess like London traits, but I had Brighton traits put into it. Yeah, that's.
And speaking of uni, Jack, often when we're talking about fashion, often I've spoken to different people who have attended like fashion colleges, fashion schools and whatnot. And a lot of them have said, you don't need to. Or for example, I've spoken to stylists who have said, don't really need to go. Obviously you said you've done graphic design?
Yeah, graphic design communication.
Cool.
Yeah.
So in terms of your course, do you feel like it was a valuable course? Like you're happy you went? Or do you feel like other graphic designers don't necessarily need to go that route, that educational route?
To learn graphic design?
Yeah.
No, I think you should go to education to learn graphic design. I'm pro education. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you shouldn't. Like, I think you should. Completely understand that it's very hard financially speaking to go to university. I got brought up by a single mum who like works her ass off at the NHS, but like very limited money. Like I had to work every day to like, I still had to have a job on top of university to do it. And like, I know that it was hard and it wasn't ideal, but the benefit of like going to university, one is the work, but two is the people that you meet. And like the people that I know now, I met a lot of people through university, and that's something that I wouldn't have been able to have got by like going out to networking events. It's just a bit disingenuous because like the university experience is like more than just work. It's actually like going house parties, interacting with each other socially, going to a pub, going to a bar, going to so and so. University exposes you to that, and like I feel like it takes you out of your echo chamber a little bit. You'll meet people with different religious views, political views, ideas, difference in taste, and that's it's the best experience, but you have to be willing to be open for that experience.
I like the way you answered that question though.
Yeah,
because when I asked it, I was more focusing on the technical side of things.
Okay.
Do you get what I mean? Like, would you say the same thing if we're just focusing on the technicalities
So
of
the work side?
Yeah, of graphic design.
I mean, it depends who you are. Like, I definitely feel like sometimes I need to be put on the deep end to learn. I'm not like that now. My discipline's like a lot better. I wouldn't be able to like run a brand otherwise. But you'd have projects and you'd have to learn a software, and I don't really like learn too many new softwares now because I've got other responsibilities and duties. Like, I'm more in a space where I'm like learning more about business. But then projects help you learn new things. You get put in the deep end. You have to get to, let's say, like an animation project and like learn how to use After Effects in a week to then come out with some like kinetic type work. Yeah, I think if you're someone that can survive being put into like a deep ocean, man, that's the place to go to. But some people do crumble under that, and for some people that isn't their way. Some people can just like within their time, within their control, sit down and be like, I'm gonna learn this today.
Yeah,
I wasn't that person.
Do you know what, Jack? I'm quite happy you said that again, because I feel like that's a narrative that's proper pushed out, that like in terms of education, I'm not going to sit here and say everyone needs it. I'm not saying that, whether it's within fashion, whether it's in whatever it is.
Well, it's kind of.
But I do feel like that narrative is like proper pushed out, that you can just sit at home and just learn something.
Well, like here we love the underdog.
Yeah,
we love like a rags to riches story. Like we like someone that doesn't conform to the system. And like in many aspects, I agree with like the system, innit? But it doesn't. I mean, for me, like I want, as I'm going to university, I'm going to make the most out of it, and I'm going to like fucking work hard. And I was that. I do believe I was that person, and I got a lot out of it. Like it was a really good course, and like it taught me to be independent. Because I feel like I was debating to go between fine art and graphic design or illustration, and I'm glad I went down graphic design, because graphic design teaches you to be independent and like make things happen. Where like fine art is more conceptual. I met in my time, this might not be like a shared perspective, but my perspective was there's a lot of like fine artists that would have to like pull the strings and could you like design this logo for me? Can you do this? Can you do that? Man, like I'm just the kind of person that would like to just do it all myself. I'd like to know how to do it at the very least, or have a level of understanding so I could like communicate to the next person. And graphic design taught me that. And like the key part to my course was communication. That's like graphic design is like part of it. That's like the vessel, but communication's like the engine. Because communication's about the graphic design. Communication's about like understanding the message you're putting across. Analyzing that. So like I'm wired to think about how things are made. I used to love. Did you ever Discovery Channel how it's made?
Yeah. Oh, I used to love that.
I was obsessed with that. So like I got into this psyche at a very young age, where I would like go down the road, see a shop sign, and be like, why is it that color? Who made it? How much did it cost to make? Do you know what I'm saying? But then when you put like communication into the mix, you're starting to think about the message that your thing's putting across. So like I guess like my course was an incubator for a lot of people that aspired to go into advertising. So like if you're doing a massive advertising campaign, you've got to think about, okay, this is how I work at Coca-Cola. We need to like promote the idea of enjoyment. How do we like promote the idea of enjoyment through the product and through an advert? And obviously like that course kind of taught how you can do it and analyze it, and I guess like maximize the probability that what you put out is the correct message. Because you probably see like advertisement that is incorrect. It has an intention. I remember like a couple of years ago in the London Underground, there was this like protein powder that was advertised, and it showed like a picture of like a really fit woman, like objectively speaking, but it kind of was very objectifying and like very subjective. It didn't like promote.
But alienated a lot of people.
It alienated a lot of people because like we're not all of that body type. Like we're not like if it showed like a man with just a six pack that's like athletic build 5'11", well like that doesn't isn't.
You know what, Jack? Yeah.
Sorry, that is a tangent. But
no, it's cool. We're gonna go on a few. No, we're gonna go. And I like this
I'll
stuff.
tell you, like the worst advert I've seen is the Pepsi advert with Kendall Jenner. So you see that. Like you can see,
I don't know who was
but you can see in that the message they're trying to put out, which is like bring peace and shit. But bro, like Pepsi, are trying to just sell Pepsi, bro. So it's like the wrong place to have that conversation.
I don't know who they had in that room.
So that in the board, whoever pitched that, good intention, no doubt, naturally, but dumb idea and bad communication. So you see the importance of it. It's important to know communication,
100%,
which is like
for everything, not even just with your course, but within fashion, within everything.
Yeah, and then that's where a lot of fashion designers, fashion houses make mistakes is that they like make these products without understanding what that thing is going to communicate. Because it's like there's one thing about expressing yourself, like art is to be free, but design is to fix, and design has a responsibility that I think art doesn't have, and fashion does blur the line between that. You know, I think I remember, I think it was Burberry a few years ago. They had like a hoodie with like a what do you call it? Lasso, like the thing.
Oh my gosh,
the rope.
Yep.
You know, and actually at this point, like mental. I think it was like 2018, 2019. Mental health is like a really big topic. Do you know what I'm saying? And suicide rate among men in the UK is at an all-time high, and you're putting that shit out. It's poor. It's so bad. Do you know what I mean? It's inconsiderate. But like, I don't think like anyone at the team's bad. I just think they're naive and don't analyze and don't think about what they're communicating. Yeah.
And it's interesting you're saying all of this, Jack, because I'm just thinking like, not like the things you're saying now, for example, is this kind of like the cornerstone of why you're in fashion, in the sense that you have an understanding of how to communicate from obviously just being who you are.
I'd like to think to.
Yeah, of course.
I'd like to think I am.
And then, so you have something that you want to communicate, and you just decide, it could have been communicated through different mediums, but there was a point where you decided you want to communicate this message through the medium of fashion.
Yeah, correct.
When was that point? Because we haven't even touched on that yet.
After like I worked in the industry for a couple years, like I when I was at school in Brighton, I used to print t-shirts.
Okay. Oh, how could you didn't mention that before?
Because there's a lot to talk about. I used to, well, obviously, like when I saw like skatewear and stuff, like I could, you know, I had an accident in skating. It's stupid. I say that like I went to the hospital. Man, I just got put off by it. But I love the culture. I love hanging out with my friends. And like my way of like contributing to it was obviously like printing t-shirts. And like one of my boys that was a skater wanted to start a brand called Logic.
Okay.
And I knew these lot weren't gonna do it, so I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I just ended up just taking their idea and doing it.
What was their idea?
It was just like
literally logo on a t-shirt.
Logo on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But it was at a time where it wasn't that deep, and I was kind of like, no, do you know what? I was at school. I used to.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was that guy that would, you know, I think it was like from year 7 to year 9. Like our secondary school had a Sainsbury's behind it, so I'd like get the 6-pack of Pepsi.
Okay, you were that guy. That's the Brixton in you.
Yeah, maybe. But I just didn't have a lot of money, so like I wanted I think like actually there isn't as much of a class disparity in Brighton.
Okay.
In some ways, as in like I lived on an estate, like I lived in a number of places there, but there was a point where like I lived in an estate, but then up the road from the estate was probably like the mansions pretty much, and so it wasn't polarizing. It's like I wasn't feeling resentful towards it, but like inevitably like a lot of my friends did come from more middle class backgrounds, and so therefore it's like I think a good scale of knowing how middle class someone is seeing how quick they get FIFA.
Oh yeah. Oh, but I can't lie to you. I used to get FIFA a day before.
So I used to get FIFA when
I'm definitely not middle class.
So I wouldn't get FIFA until Christmas.
Oh, okay. In fact, you're right. Actually, I'm thinking about when I started. I'm thinking about when I started making my own money, but it would have to be for my birthday's in October.
I used to. So I used to get a certain level of pocket money a week. It wouldn't be much at all. I couldn't even tell you how much it was. But it wouldn't be a note. It'd be coins. So like in order for me to make more money, I would just take like a couple quid from my dinner money and then just flip it in Sainsbury's in order for me to be able to like kind of like match the pleasures of what people were obtaining around me.
There's 2 things I want to go back to. Yeah. This is going to be a tangent, but not too much of a tangent.
I'm all for tangents.
So you know when we were talking about the brand that you started with, the
Logic.
Logic, yeah.
Sure.
I was watching your Instagram story yesterday.
Oh no.
And somebody asked you a question about, I want to start a brand. I'm 17.
Oh yeah.
And you said something.
What did you think about my answer first?
We're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, go.
You said something to them like, experience life first. You may not have certain things to talk about yet and whatnot. Obviously, don't let me change what you're saying, but that was
no, for sure.
That was the essence I took from it. And it's interesting how when you were just talking about Logic, you said, it was literally just a logo on a t-shirt and it wasn't that deep. And I'm happy you said that.
Yeah.
The fact you said it wasn't that deep. Because my next question is like, when people are young and starting brands and whatnot, and I don't know, like with age, supposedly should come life experience and wisdom and whatnot, yeah. When somebody's, I don't know, 16, 17 and whatnot, yeah, do you feel like they haven't necessarily experienced life enough to create a brand with a, good isn't the right word, but with a message that's relevant enough to the time?
Okay, I guess we can break down how. So I'm actually kind of like multitasking with this because I want to show you the logo. So it's like that. If you see that, it was basically like a cube. The design was a cube, so LOGIC. Oh, it looks nice. But I used to go. There was like a WH Smith's down the road from where I lived, and I used to get the heat transfer paper, print it in my like HP printer, cut it out, heat press it onto like a like not even a Gildan t-shirt.
What's that, Primark t-shirts or something?
Yeah, Primark t-shirts. So like. Someone would be like, "Oh, like, do you want like crew neck or V-neck?" And I would like then go in the weekend to get it and then print it, and then I would give it to them on the Monday, and like it'd be like £20, but like £20 of
what? That's a flip. You were spending what, £4 on the t-shirts?
£20 in the city that's not London in year 10 is wild, bro. That's a bill. So yeah, it was good. It funded a lot. So yeah, it was nice. And the people that came up with the idea were fuck all because they didn't do anything.
And then going back to the question I asked, like, yeah, so why did you respond like that to the 17-year-old that hit you up?
Because I think, well, I mean, what I was exposed to at 17 was different to what someone's now is exposed to at 17. And I think, like, in the creative industry, there's an obsession with young success. Oh, this young fashion designer is, like, breaking new boundaries, blah, blah, blah. But, bro, like, people got to live their youth as well. People got to like understand the world. To like I love the idea, like when Virgil used to say that he was designing for his younger self, and like the reason he was because he fucking lived his childhood. Bro, he was wearing Bean Trill at 30. I think like a lot of people forget that. Like it's Bean Trill was amazing, but it's like, you know, like even I'm probably doing this like arguably too young in some ways. I'm 26 years old, you know, so I just think like when you're a 17-year-old, there is like so many things you should be experiencing beyond like the worries and anxieties of like your future career. Now, like obviously everyone to their own, but I think there's definitely an influence. I'm probably influencing this individual because of what I'm doing, and he's like, oh, same, oh, I can't wait, I need to do it now. It's like, no, but like be patient. Like there is so much to experience that could actually like enhance your 100%. Outcome in the end. So, you know, in my head, I think to myself, you know, what if I started Eliza when I was 20 years old versus now? What if Jay-Z brought out his first album at 18 instead of 27?
May never have been Jay-Z.
The thing, well, he would have, but it wouldn't. The topics he talked about would not have come to the surface. And you actually like sometimes some things take time.
I had to ask because I even screenshotted it. Yeah. Because I said I need to ask that question, and I'm happy I asked it because the response you gave was refreshing. Because as you're saying, there's that almost like a fetishization of young success, and I think it puts so much pressure on young people, not only designers but.
Well, yeah, I think there's loads of, you know, like bursaries and funding for like young designers and stuff. Like, what about, man, like we're in a different place. Like those bursaries should extend from 25 to 30 years old. I don't think people understand at the time we're in, like, it's not 2016. Just come out of a pandemic. We're now,
people kind of lost out on 2 years, if you want to put it like that. Yeah.
Like at heart, I still feel like I'm 23 because like there was a point where like my ambition was put aside for survival, and I think a lot of people felt like that. So 100%. I wasn't thinking about career progression. I was making sure that just food was on the table at the end, and that was my position in it. And I actually like did well in the pandemic, financially speaking. Like if anything, like I probably made more money in the pandemic through like freelance work than I did before the
pandemic.
Yeah, literally, it was a pandemic. It was a pandemic.
Jack, what was I going to say?
It was a pandemic.
Jack.
I've seen that meme on Twitter. It's funny. But, you know, I think like at 17, okay, between 17 and... It's just a weird perspective for me. Like, in 3 years, I'm 29. It's such a... Like, to me, that just sounds so fucking old compared to 26. But 17 to 20 is like... It doesn't.
A lot happens through that time, though.
A lot happens through that time, but like, don't isolate. Like, this game is very isolating, and so I think that time isn't the time you should isolate yourself. That's my perspective. You know what I mean? If you want to be that person that like doesn't want to do anything else and just focus on this, do it. But through my experience, I've seen a lot of people do things too young and become so disillusioned by it that it kind of like ruins them a little bit. Or I wouldn't, but I say that with no judgment. There are some people that
facts.
There are some people that obviously like do very well and like more power to them in it. But like, I don't think I'd want to do this and make a young person feel anxious about their future. I'd want them to like, no, like this is life right now. And like, man, when I was 16, I was just playing. Like, honestly, like I was passionate. I think the one thing that I did have over a lot of people when I was younger, it was like, man, I loved art. I loved graphic design. Like, I liked graphic design before it was cool to people. I used to get picked on because of it.
You just looked at it as a nerd.
Yeah, my introduction to graphic design was in, funnily enough, 2008 when Shepard Fairley did the Hope poster for Barack Obama. It was an unofficial poster.
Serious?
Yeah, so like,
that was an unofficial the one that was like blue, red, like
yellow. Yeah. It was unofficial. He made it as an endorsement to Barack Obama because he wanted. And
they ran with it as.
Well, yeah, because it was so powerful. It, like, I guess like in the 2008 sense, it went viral. It was a really great symbol of like what Barack Obama represented.
And Jack, so to bring it back to fashion, yeah.
Sure.
Before we started talking again, yeah. You mentioned that from your time at work and with a Cold War, yeah.
Yeah.
How old were you when that started? Was it straight after uni?
No, so okay, well.
Yeah, so what happened straight after uni? Talk me through to that.
How can I break it down? I went through a bit of a rough. So I broke up with my girlfriend at the time.
Mate, been there. Tough times, innit?
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard. I won't go into too much detail, but it was like a hard time, and like the timing was really off. But like, I guess like when those things happen, there's no such thing as a good time.
Yeah.
And it kind of put me in a bit of like, I wouldn't say like a bad mental health state. It just, I think I didn't want to go straight. I wouldn't. I'm sounding like Stormzy on that fucking Capital One. I didn't know where I wanted to be in the industry. Like, I definitely liked fashion at this point, but there wasn't a lot of brands out there that I would be willing to work for. And I still wouldn't. And it's the reason why I didn't even go to another brand after ACW. I didn't want to go into advertising. I didn't like that side of the industry. And maybe that's because I'm quite a stubborn character to an extent. But I don't like spend 3 years of education and even more education beyond that for someone who has no understanding of design to tell me what's right. That's just me, and that was my mindset at the point. I was very like passionate about photography at the time. I used to like, my way of networking with people was to pick up a camera. So I used to go to like a lot of music events, and a lot of my friends to this day I've met through that. And I just wanted to do that still. I was kind of prepared to like go down the road of uncertainty, and I guess like my financial stability was working at a pub. So I worked at a pub for 6 months in East London. So I used to cycle from Peckham to Broadway Market every day for 6 months. But I like made literally fuck all money. And I, like on top of that, because I was like sustaining photography, I was like paying for film, and no one likes to pay for photography. It's a very like poor person's game unless like you're really in it commercially. And yeah, like I was sofa surfing at this. So like the sofa surfing for 6 months as well was really difficult. I like had no stability. Like I don't have, even though I'm from London, I don't really have like a home to fall back on. It's either I leave London and like I don't even have a bedroom at like my dad's place or my mum's place. And like, it's fine. Like there's nothing against them. That is just the reality. And so like I had to fucking make it work. And then, yeah, like I started a good friend of mine was working at this design company in Haggerston, and like they had like an intern space, and I ended up working there for 2 months as like a graphic design intern. It was advertising, but like their advertising was like in fashion. So it's a lot of like the graphic design side of that. I liked it, but I did fuck about a little bit in the sense that my mind was very elsewhere rather than in that. So then, because I'd like be there doing bits of work, and then but I'd be like doing like an album cover for a friend of mine, so they would like tell me off and be like, "You're here to like." I remember actually being told off, being like, "You're here, like, you know, like we just want you to like make teas and stuff." Like, no, and then and then a Cold Wall put a job post up on Instagram at like to what I remember like 9 p.m. Interviews the next day, graphic design, art direction assistant, but they only wanted to interview CSM students. So it's like, okay, here we go. But I'm not going to take that for an answer. I've just graduated from UAL, from Chelsea, which is like got a from a statistical standpoint a better graphic design course. I'm gonna try and see if I can get it. So I like emailed Samuel Ross's PA at the time, which was Ray. Ray's a good mate of mine now, which is quite funny. But like I sent like a preliminary portfolio and was like, okay, hi Ray, hope you're well. I'm not a CSM student, but I just graduated. Can you please make an exception for this? Sent a portfolio, and boom, got an interview. And I did a sickie at the internship. Went to CSM the next day. They had barriers, and like I couldn't finesse it, so I couldn't get in. So I was like nervous, and like my phone was broke at this time, so I had like a brick phone, so it weren't even a situation where I could like slide a DM and that. And I just waited probably like, and I think their interviews went over, so I was probably there like standing for like 6 hours, just like waiting to see face. And then like Ray and Sam came and they interviewed. I was the last person to be interviewed, and they interviewed me in like some restaurant. You know, like how CSM has restaurants on the out.
I've never been.
Okay, so on the outside of the building, there are just restaurants. Like they interviewed me in a restaurant, and I like made my portfolio overnight. I didn't sleep. I just like
You must have been knackered after all that.
Yeah, I was. I was knackered. It was really tiring, but I wanted it. And
I could tell.
I wanted it because when I was at university, it was the only brand that spoke to me. Like I think, like at this point, like Dope Chef was falling off. I never was really into trap style because that just wasn't the thing. Like a lot of my influences from when I was younger were American-based brands, that, like realistically speaking. So, but like when I at this point, like a Cold War were doing stuff that resonated with me, which I found quite weird. So they would like sell these like English book, like, you know, there's like yellow books, school books, and there was like this black spray paint. I like loved it. I like the fact how that could be a product, and I like mentioned that in my interview. It was like that resonates with me because it's like a relatable thing. And yeah, it turns out there was some things I think I found out like the reason why I got it maybe was because I had like a few projects in there that made me just like, I think they felt like I probably wasn't like technically the best designer, but I understood the culture of it a little bit. I had a music video with Lancey Foe.
Which song?
I think at the time, Line It Up. It was called. How that goes. Yeah, it's old Lancey in it, but like there was two songs. It was I did this song called Line It Up, and there was this other one. He had like a song with Nige, the producer. And I shot that. It was just like VHS footage and stuff. Like it wasn't. Right, man would like call me like
Do or Die.
That's the music video.
Hang on, what a video! Oi, Do or Die. Hang on, but sorry, let me.
I prefer the Line It Up video respectfully, but I prefer Do or Die as a song. Okay, cool, but I did those videos, and like the Sam and Lancey had a relationship, so I think there was
did Lancey model for them or something?
Yeah. Lancey walked their first runway, and like did a few runway shows after. I think he did 3 in total. But like Lancey's a bit older, Sam's a bit older. Like I think they knew each other, and I guess like don't know I guess like if me and you knew mutuals, or like you worked with like my man, I'm gonna trust you naturally. In in many ways that's the case, and I don't know, but I think that helped. And yeah, like I got the job, and it was good. Got put in the fucking deep end.
Yeah. And how long were you there for?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Cool.
But like 2 years there's like 4 years.
This is what I'm gonna say, because how old was the Cold War by that point?
Two or 3 years old, maybe.
That's relatively early.
It depends, like, because it was first. I think they were first publicized at like the very like January 2015. But obviously, like they must have
done stuff before.
Yeah. But it's just like not out there. I don't know. I don't have the answer in it. But like, if we're going to talk publicly 2015, and I joined end of 2017.
So what was that like then? Because obviously I read that article. I can't remember who it was with though. Was it Out something?
Original Shift.
Yes, I think it was with them. Yeah. And obviously you spoke about your experience there and whatnot, and you spoke about the fact that you were able to work across so many different things within it.
Well, so what like when I joined, like these man can fact check me and be like, oh, that's not true. Well, I got told that I was like the first full-time designer there. Like graphics, I was like, my job was to design. Like there was I love him to bits, like Mickey, who was there, but he was in production and he was a fashion designer. But I was the first graphic designer, and I think obviously there was like loads of like roles that were on the contracts and stuff. But you know, I remember getting told by someone like my job was literally to do what my man doesn't have time to do anymore. And it was, you know, when there's only like 5 or 6 of you, and at this point, like they were selling a lot, they were popping. You just everyone's just got to do what they got to do to get the job done. And like there were some times where I was doing things that was a bit out of my spec, but that was the same case for everyone. And that was a really great experience to have, because I don't think there's like many jobs where you can learn the A to Z route to it. And a lot of that helped me now in terms of like building Eliza up. And like Eliza's not where that was at that point, but it can be, and I'm very prepared for it. I
like how you're obviously speaking about what you learn and whatnot, and in your article, the one with Original Shift, you said something that was just so sick, where you was like, obviously working under Samuel Ross, you learned a lot, and you said how you referenced how Samuel Ross had obviously worked under Virgil, and there was a lineage to that. I don't know why I liked hearing that, so I think it just read sick. But like, so what did you learn from being around Samuel Ross and working with him?
Well, like Sam got trained by someone from America, and I definitely think the work relationship between like an American and someone that's British is very different. You know, that's not to question whether Sam's work ethic would be different if he got taught under someone that's British, but like the American dream is a very true thing out there. People want that. Where here it's keep calm, carry on.
Literally,
we're in shit, but let's keep going. You know, it's not very motivating, but you'll get on with the day. Yeah. And I see a lot of that mentality in my friends now. That like it ain't in this game, but just, you know, like friends out of the game. Where like I definitely see his influence, because when I like used to work with him, I didn't understand it at the point, but like his work ethic was beyond anyone I've ever met. Like it like to the point it was actually quite fucking frightening. And like I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I was not nervous and anxious. Like there was a lot of nervous nights and anxious nights because I didn't want to disappoint him, and not in a kiss ass way, but I looked up to him. Naturally. I looked up to him a lot, and like when you're young, you want to emulate your master, hypothetically speaking, you know, your mentor, whatever, however you want to phrase it. So yeah, it was a lot of pressure, and maybe not everyone would. Maybe there's a lot of people that dealt with that better, but I felt a lot of pressure, and like I'm not gonna.
Pressure makes diamonds, though.
Yeah, man, I've got a book that says it, and now I'm gonna show you. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. But yeah, it's I felt a lot of pressure. But I'm a bit of a survivalist in the sense that I don't back down from stuff no matter how hard it feels, and like it got me through. He put me in the deep end. He put me in the deep end more than anyone's ever put me in the deep end, but I like owe pretty much 90% of the things I've learned, practically speaking, because of him and how he taught me. And not many people could have done what I did. Like not many people, man, I know so many people to this day that would have taken the piss and would be, I can't do this job, it's not for me. Oh, there's too many hours, mate, fuck off. It's like literally what it's like. That's why there's not many Cold Walls out there. That's why there's not many Cortezes out there. It like literally take, like when people like get a bit, why is it not working for me? Or like, what are they doing? Man, like, you got to understand, like, it's not easy. And yes, there are going to be sleepless nights. Like, naturally speaking, if you work an 8-hour shift and I work 14 hours and I work smart about it and I just graft it, mate, I'm doing 2 times as much as you. Literally. And so like the hours there, I think as it got bigger, it got more bureaucratic. So therefore, you know, I did feel like near the end of my tenure there, it got a bit easier in terms of like the social work balance. But at the start, it was a fucking graft. Yeah, it was really hard.
Hey, we could talk about this for so long, but
sure.
I was going to say, we've probably been speaking for about 40 odd minutes or something like that. Fucking hell. And this is...
Well, you want to wrap this up in 10 minutes?
I was going to say...
No.
Jack's not letting me leave now, Joe.
No, you don't play any point you want, innit?
Jack, do you know what I was going to say? This is the first time you mentioned Eliza was literally like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So that's the perfect segue. God works in the best ways.
Nice.
So cool. Now, let's start talking about Eliza, bro.
Cool.
And, bro, do you know what I always think about when I think about Eliza? I think about what was going on in your life and what led you to the point of thinking about such a thing, like such a message to want to put. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, okay. So I've always been interested. I mean, I don't think this is correct, but like I had a bit of a nutty relative and we'd kind of like sit there, watch like YouTube, watch conspiracy theories and stuff and chat and like be skeptical about the world. I'm not like in no way it was a good thing. I'm not in any way celebrating this, but like there is definitely, I do think about this, and like there's definitely a part that influenced me on that.
100%.
And but it was more you know, like I remember being like 7 years old watching a video of like George Bush like worship some fucking structure in like the middle of a woodland.
Bohemia Grove.
I think so.
But I know about these
But
things.
that's a
Ask
weird
about
thing.
me,
But that's
you know?
a weird thing to be watching at like
that
the age of 7. And like at like a very young age, I've always been like fascinated by the idea that there's like things beyond what you know in front of you.
So let's say critical thought.
Sure.
Yeah. So I feel like that's the positive you could take from it to a certain degree.
It's a form of critical thinking, but it was more, you know, to put it blunt, it's the idea that there are things out there that you don't know.
God's honest truth.
Like, not everything is to seem what it seems. I'm not saying that, like, you know, I do think sometimes, conspiracy theories absolutely get stretched to like the end of time, but it was more just that's what my taking from it was, you know, and like I was really into a documentary. I think like documentaries have inspired me the most into this kind of like logic. I was really inspired by a documentary called The Zeitgeist. If you've ever watched it,
I feel like I have, man.
The Zeitgeist was
kind of scared me.
Yeah, it is, but it talks about, you know, it talks about religion and like the connectivity between like all the religions that have like come up.
Seems that guy still.
Zodiac, like where does that come from, and like how does debt work, and how does finance work, and why is the institution the way it is now? 9/11. I don't really like the 9/11 part, just because I just think it's a bit too
sensitive.
No, because everyone has a right to talk about it and have their perspective on it. But I do think sometimes it can be a bit of a stretch. Like, mate, it doesn't matter how at the end of the day, that is what happens, and it doesn't matter like if it was an inside job or whether like it fucking happens, you know. But like the things about finance is really interesting because it makes you rethink about like what debt is, and I think that's, you know, you don't get taught finance as much at school. So yeah, it got exposed to a lot, and then I guess like I watched. Really, the biggest inspiration, which is actually where this comes from, is I watched Hypernormalization by Adam Curtis, and Adam Curtis was he worked at the BBC Archive, and I didn't know like his work prior to this documentary. I ended up watching it, but it's the most incredible way of displaying information I've ever seen. Like, I love it. I don't know why. Like, some people find it annoying. For me, I think it's amazing. It's incredibly digestible, but really powerful. It's like watching a Christopher Nolan film, but on real life stuff. It's like you leave the film, it's not like, oh, that was a great film. It's like, wow, that was a lot. Makes you think, look at the world differently. It makes you feel like it's this like weird bit in the middle, you know, like consciousness, awareness. And Eliza was I'll break down what Eliza is. So I ended up referencing hypernormalization in my dissertation at university. So I've had this idea I've had this idea in my head for 5 years, 4 or 5 years. Eliza, my dissertation at university was, can individualism survive in a neoliberalist society? Dense. But it's about, but in short, can you be an individual in the UK? Like, let's take it that way. That is what I'm asking. The answer is an illusion of it can, but the reality of it can't. I got a 2-1 for it.
Should have got first.
No, I think I deserve the 2-1. And the reason is because I maxed out my word count, but, surprise, surprise, needed to talk more about it because it's such an in-depth subject. And actually, that's a really like interesting thing about it, is that, yeah, cool, I need to talk more about it and I want to research more about it. And so like I thought for a long time, like how can I explore this through like a medium of vessels, and like it was, I guess it like ended up becoming a part of my ethos in practice. You know, like when I was at ACW, I used to like think of things like, there was a lot of like work proposals that I put forward in the brand that didn't come out, that like talks about things like, this never came out, but I wanted to like do this like print on the inside of a jacket, which showed like, you know, like Google Maps. On Google Earth, you can show a satellite image of something that was shot 5 years ago versus now. So like I took like a building that got knocked down and then turned into flats. And so I was like talking about like gentrification. Like it made me think about that. It, like, you know, like those, like that ethos was like influenced by it. Like, it didn't go forward. Like I'm not the creative director, Sam isn't it? Like he has his reasons. He had like his brand has his own ethos, and yeah, it's cool. But it was like cool. It like really informed me on that. But then like I guess my whole ethos like evolved around like humanity. I was very like fascinated by people. Like when I used to paint, I used to draw faces in like, I guess like a Keith Haring style. That's just me being young and impressionable. But I was obsessed. I wasn't obsessed about things. I weren't like trying to imagine things. Like in photography, I weren't trying to build sets or build like a dream realm. It was always documenting. I was like very into truth and reality, really, really into it. And that's probably why I lend to these documentaries, is because, you know, I guess what they're trying, it's the search of truth. And, you know, I think there's 3 types of truth: political truth, objective truth, and personal truth. Really interesting. So I lent to all that stuff. And so in the documentary and in dissertation, I put, there was a computer called Eliza, and it talks about hypernormalization. And Eliza was a computer built in the 60s in the MIT by a professor called Joseph Weizenbaum. Off the top of my head, I don't remember like why he did it. I think in the documentary they referenced that he was extremely disillusioned by like the institution and like what they were trying to attempt with AI. And so he built a computer pretty much out of irony to, you know, kind of take the piss a little bit. And the computer was designed to talk to you, but back to the form of a question. And it was inspired by a psychiatrist called Carl Rogers, and Carl Rogers' method of psychiatry to his clients would be repeating everything the client said back into form of a question. So if you go, oh, I'm feeling good today, I'd go, why are you feeling good? And then you say, oh, because I'm doing a podcast in Jack's studio. And then the computer would say, why are you doing a podcast? What makes you feel good about doing a podcast? That
cover will go on forever, bro.
Exactly. And it will come to a point where it gets really, really sensitive because you start diving deep into yourself. And I guess like we all have levels of vulnerability that we're not willing to go past with people because that comes down to trust. But this computer doesn't fucking understand anything.
What we were speaking about before we recorded.
This computer doesn't understand anything you're saying. It's just programmed to know how to flip your words. Yeah. So the first person to have tested the computer was Joseph Weizenbaum's secretary. Now, she is a woman in the 60s in America. It's a different time. Like, I don't even need to explain. Like, you know, like you don't really have as many rights.
Patriarchy.
Yeah, the patriarchy. Yeah, you put the words out of my mouth. And so, after 3 exchanges with the computer in a testing session, she told everyone to leave the room because she was willing to talk to the computer in certain ways, but she didn't want like peers to observe what she was saying. And like in her post-interview, she kind of says something. It says more directly on the documentary, but it says something along the line of, you know, the computer's not judging me, not telling me like what to dress like, not trying to sleep with me. It's the first time I can feel free. So like what you know, Joseph Weizenbaum was fascinated by this because it showed that why is it this computer can expose this, and what it showed was that the computer is just a mirror. You're literally talking to yourself, but she was by talking to herself, she was willing to expose more of her truth than she was to her boss, maybe her husband, her kids. Yeah. It showed that individuals are only truly comfortable with themselves, you know? And so that was really fascinating to me. That was like, wow, there's something so like open about it. I'll be real, hypernormalization changed my mind and my life, and I don't know whether that's a good thing. That sounds a little bit obsessive. I probably watch things. I get a bit into the habit. I'm the kind of person to like, if I really like a song, I'll play it 10 times over. I did the same thing with the documentary. But it was just, you know, it kept on like that. That was the thing out of the whole documentary that latched onto me because it went back to my whole original fascination with like individualism and like how like people socialize themselves into society. I guess that was where I was at with it, you know. So the synopsis in the documentary is, in an age of individualism, what makes people feel secure is having themselves reflected back to them like a mirror. That is crazy. That is like, and it's true. I don't think like there is absolutely no one in my life that knows 100% everything about me. Impossible. And the fact is that is true to absolutely everyone. Of course, yeah. Whether you're with someone for like 50 years in your life and you're older, there's probably like 1% of something they don't know about you. And we all do judge. We all have preference. You can't have preference without prejudice. There's a fact in that. So, okay, but what I liked is that I love the fact that she was able to feel comfortable to speak. So for me, it was like, okay, what if instead of the computer, it's clothing? Because actually, ironically, the fashion industry is the most judgmental industry. It has that reputation. I don't fucking care how progressive people think it is. If you get out of London and go to just like real places, people don't fucking care about it because it's not. It still is a clique of some sort. And there's people, you know, like there are great people that have worked in the industry and do work in the industry, but it's not there yet. It really isn't. And I don't think it can get there by companies and establishments that already exist. Because it just seems from the outside in like a tactic to just be with the time, you know? So I kind of felt when lockdown happened, I was like, do you know what? Maybe like the world needs this, because everyone's kind of like in their house, reevaluating in different circumstances, thinking about what is it that they really want in life. And I felt conceptually it was the right time to accumulate. Like at the time, I didn't even know it was the brand I wanted to make was called Eliza, but it was something like I knew what the subject was about. But ended up becoming Eliza, and I had to add the A at the start because of trademarking reasons.
Okay.
I couldn't trademark.
The A's lit though.
Well, it worked because of the mirror. So you've got the two A's, which is like the symmetry, and then you've got the L in the middle, which represents the individual, which is why I put a mouth and an eye to it. It like the logo is so broken down that I can justify selling a logo t-shirt because the logo has so much intrinsic meaning onto it. It looks like that, not because I want it to, because it has to. That's like my logic into designing, is like things have to look a certain way.
Speaking about the logo, Jack, yeah. So of course you've broken down what kind of led you to have the thought process of it. From like a creative design sort of standpoint, where did you go from there?
So
what were the steps?
I mean, I was like thinking about clothes first, so I didn't design a logo first. I was like just thinking about, okay, like if I did a print design on a hoodie, like what would my print design be? And I was like exploring mirrors and like printing a mirror, but obviously it has a reflection on it. So I'd like I put it in my first collection, and it was like a t-shirt of this iconic IKEA mirror that I have in this room right now. But I would take the stock photo from IKEA and then print it, because it's kind of ironic. It's ironic. It's like a ready-made object. I love like the idea of like the clothing's the gallery, but the print is the artwork in that space. And it's so mundane. It's so fucking mundane. It doesn't actually like look that great. But the point is that the meaning prevails the matter. And within that, it's beautiful. And within that, it feels right to wear it. So it's justified, you know? So it kind of started with that. And then I then like, when I figured out at this point that Eliza was what I wanted to call it, I then was just like breaking. I did it slowly over the course of a couple months, because at this point I was doing a lot of like freelance work for like other fashion brands and like doing photography jobs, and so it was like designing a bit, sitting on it, looking how do I feel about it, chiseling it down. You know, it was like chiseling down marble. And then it came to a point where I was like, okay, this is where I want to be positioned. I like got my favorite brands. I put the logos on this like PDF file, and I was like designing the logo, and I was like, if it's not better or it doesn't fit in, it's not good enough.
You had to keep doing iterations basically.
Yeah. Like the final iteration I did of the logo was that the corners weren't rounded, because it felt too brutal. Like, I was trying to think about like what it, you know, you come a point, you know how earlier I was saying like you want to emulate your master. Well, there comes a point when you get past that, you start to realize that you have your own voice and your own language. Because I think when you like work under someone, you have like, I don't think I used to think Sam would implant this on me deliberately, but I don't think he did it. I think I was just like very, you know, infatuated by like the logic of his approach. It really resonated with me, so I thought it was right, and there was no other way of looking at it. But then I was like, nah, like I'm quite a sensitive person. Like, very admittedly, I'm a massive deep thinker. Sam is a very deep thinker. I'm like, I personally believe I've taken it maybe a bit too far, but I enjoy it because it makes the world look like, to me, the world looks like a better place.
Colourful.
There's just depth in it. Seasoning. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, go.
You know what I mean? You're laughing, bro, but it's funny, isn't it?
No, it's true.
Nothing's better than articulating a bit of wit, isn't it? But yeah, like I took it to a level like of like philosophy, and I was like, yeah, like I'm really into this stuff. Like, I've always been fascinated by human history. Massive subject for me. Like, I've always used to go to like old Roman burial sites. Like in the south of the country, there's quite like Chichester and all the stuff. Like, my mum would like take me there on like a weekend trip and see all that. I loved museums. My mum, like, something that my mum always blessed me with was like, she would always try and take me out and show me things, like go into the Tate, go into like Natural History Museum, Science Museum, the V&A, Like I was really into it, and like I think like it came a point where I was just like owning my truth a little bit, and like no, you know, it might not be right to people, but it's right for me, and like I'm going to then project that.
Do you know what, Jack?
Yeah.
Because I want the listeners to get like a, I don't know, like a soundbite almost, yeah.
Sure.
Which is going to be difficult because of everything
Always.
we discussed, yeah. But like, what's the main aim of Eliza?
There's a few aims. Like the aim is bigger than me, so I like can't. In the same way that Eliza doesn't just have like a one-word slogan like "just do it," because I don't really think the world is two-dimensional like that. It's a lot more in depth. So Eliza's mission statement. There's two mission statements to Eliza. One is the case study, which is, well, you know, in an age of individualism, what makes people feel secure is having themselves reflected back to them like a mirror. But then I've added, to kind of remix it, is Eliza is that mirror.
Okay.
So like the message straight away to people is that Eliza is a mirror of you. So like when you wear Eliza, or if you read Eliza, I don't want you to look at, like I want people to look at one another on the same level. You know, I think fashion is highly built on insecurity, and I think it still is. There's a reason why typical streetwear fashion back in the day would be a small print on the front and a large print on the back, because you don't want to look at each other in the eyes, but then when you walk past each other, you might look back, and what do you see? A bigger print. It's a mad logic, but you think about that and it's like, wow, that really makes sense. Why is it like that? So I'm going to question it. So like in my clothing, all the prints are really fuck off size large on the front. You know, there's so I challenge that. You know, and it's quite funny, like people that I know that don't know each other and seeing each other wear Eliza, they're like, oh my god, like you're wearing that, like how are you? Not even, oh, do you know Jack? Do you know Nosa? It's like that's cool. Like what are you saying? Man, that's really nice, man. Like I want people to like look at each other like they look at themselves in the mirror. You know, treat people how you want to be treated. And
Facts.
It reduces the tension amongst individuals. I want people to embrace difference as much as we embrace our similarities, and like this true peace in that. And I don't think there is that. And I think fashion is a really great vessel to facilitate that. So like my clothing isn't based around making someone, I'm not promoting the idea that you should be the loudest person in the room. No, you should be effective. Man, like there's people in the world that just want to have family and kids. They're not fucking wrong for that. That's just their preference. Not everyone wants to be the next Elon Musk. And like I've been in environments where people belittle that. And like it's wrong, man. Like it's really wrong. And it's not like fuck the 9 to 5, man. You are naive, bro, because who does your accounting? Who cooks you food? People are probably in 9 to 5s. And like anything, they're the people that really run and drive society.
You know this.
Not you with your ambition to make clothes or like I know my place, bro. Like I don't save children's lives. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a teacher. I would like to try and teach through the vessel of what I'm doing, but like, man, like I'm not entitled as a creative. Like the biggest fucking pandemic's creative entitlement. I don't owe, like the world owes me nothing. I owe the world everything. I believe I'm a servant to it, and I don't like ever get bitter and like why aren't people buying my shit or that? Nah, man, like they don't buy my stuff is because I'm doing something wrong and I've got to go out again and try and not complain about it. I never complain.
What's the second one?
The second one is sorry. The second one is
why are you apologizing?
Because I'm going on the tangent.
Don't.
The second statement, which like features on a lot of our prints, is a dialogic study of the autonomous individual. That is our like actual first statement. Which sounds quite intellectual, but to break it down, it means, what does it mean to be free? So dialogic means learning through a means of dialogue. So right now, me and you are having a conversation. That's dialogic, and me and you are going to leave the room learning from it. We're going to take something from it. That's great. But me and you have to be willing to learn and be open to what each other is going to say in order to take something from it. So that I encourage in the brand. A study of the autonomous individual is just, what does it mean to be free? So I want to learn through dialogue, what does it mean to be a free person? And that is a really, really big question.
It's one of the biggest, mate.
And in fashion, it's a very sustainable one because it means I can keep going on about it, trying to explore what it means. So like collection, I can't run out of ideas because there's so many perceptions of what it means.
Jack, speaking of that, I think that's the perfect segue to a question that I've had in my head for a while.
Nice.
You've got so much message. It's such a, as I said at the beginning of the conversation, it's such a pertinent, universal, massive message that you're trying to get across. Yeah. When it comes to the garments, the design, I don't know, the things you do around the brand, the experiential stuff you do. What is like the process, if there even is one, to articulate that message?
I can tell you a system that I've recently thought about, because it's like I don't know, what the brand looks like now is what I did not intend it to look like that. But it kind of, when you put rules in place, like things have to kind of look a certain way. Yes. Like in my head before I started this, you know, like one of my favorite brands out there is Muji. If I could be a creative director of anyone, it would be Muji. Because it's like idea of compact living. There's like a peace incentive that comes into it. I love all sort of homeware, fashion, you name it. I love all of it. Take me there. Take me there over like a lot of luxury brands. But then as it evolved, you know, I kind of started exploring like a system of like research. So like, how do I mood board? Because the mood boarding is what influences the design outcome. And so I'll talk about my secondary logo, which is I refer to as the individual symbol. Now, it's a mix of two references, and I'll like elaborate on why I found this system out to be quite effective. So I was trying to explore like, okay, if I'm trying to talk about individuals, you know, like I was a massive fan of flags. My stepdad, when I was younger, when he was younger, he like traveled a lot, and so he would show me like atlases. I used to have like a poster on the wall of like all the world's flags, and I used to like, maybe that's where my love for graphic design came from, because I would like look at flags and analyze like, why is it that color? Like I always was fascinated by the Kenyan flag. Like, why is there a shield and like two spears going?
And what is it? Is red, black, green?
Yeah. Like they're not there. They're so purposeful. Like there's a reason why it's there. And I was a why kid, so I would always ask why. And I recently learned, I would say last year, the term's called Vexillology. It's the study of flags. And so I was thinking, okay, so what has there been a flag that represents the world? Okay, we've got nations flags, but what about a world flag? There's been unofficial ones. There's been two unsuccessful ones. I forget the names of the people that designed it, but they're really, really beautiful. One looks like this old symbol called the flower of life, which is like these interlocking circles, which is, you know, like resembles like atoms, and like there's, you know, sacred symmetry in plants. I love that. I've been obsessed with like sacred geometry. And the other one was like this really like cool like 70s posterized look of Earth. Now, okay, they got dismissed, but the like supposedly speaking, the most official flag of the world is the United Nations flag. But not everyone's a member of the United Nations. But that is the closest to it, right? But like the thing about it was like, well, that doesn't resemble the inhabitants on the planet, you know, because the Earth has way more than just humans on it. We're a percentage of the species on the world. So like, what is the flag of humanity? So I was exploring like two things. Like, okay, like cool. How can I represent everyone without it getting too techie in the conversation of representation? And so I looked at two things. I looked at Da Vinci. Da Vinci supposedly is the most talented person who's ever lived. Inventor of the helicopter, you name it. I could write a list about this. But we all kind of aspired that he was, as he was the most talented person who's ever lived, you could kind of argue that he like fulfilled his maximum potential in his life. And we all aspire to that. We all aspire to be the maximum version of ourselves, the best version of ourselves. That is subjective. That could be the best dad. That could be the best drip. That could be so on and so forth. He did a lot. He was a multi-talented, he was a polymath. So it was like paying homage. It was paying homage to like the height of what an individual can do. So I took the Vitruvian Man that he did, because I think that was one of his. It was one of the most like humanistic diagrams I saw him do. That was like really stripped back. But then I was like, okay, that's a reference of like human history. But then like, how do I like modernize it? And so I was looking at, obviously, there's a study of the term mon, which is old Japanese symbols, which is like where logos come from. So like back then, like the tribes in Japan would have their symbol on like a stick when they would go to war, but they wouldn't be necessarily be rectangular, they would be circular. So like modern day versions are literally like the Mitsubishi logo, Nissan. They're considered mon, they're logos. And so what's the most human looking symbol? I was looking at like the toilet symbol.
It really is.
The toilet,
everyone understands it.
And it's crazy because the world's a really complex place. But like me and you could speak a completely different language, but we know what toilet to go in. Wow. That is great communication. That's incredible design. we don't appreciate that. We don't appreciate that these things help us. We don't appreciate that we've got a city mapper to tell us where to go. We're not using A to Z maps anymore. But these symbols help us. They help us navigate through a complex world. And irrelevant of what language and culture in, they help us. They know how to inform us. And so it's like taking like the classic notes of like the past, what makes us us, versus like the mundane now. I said, I think the world is a really like mundane place if you look at things on the surface level, and the toilet symbol is a real representation of that. But if you look deeper at what it means, it's one of the best designs there are, because it serves its purpose
to a T.
So I took the both and I like added extra pair of legs. So it was, you know, like, so just so it's a more it's a non-binary logo. It doesn't represent a gender, it represents an individual. And so those two things came together, built the perfect the closest humanity has right now to a logo that represents themselves, a flag, a mon, a logo, yeah. So that's where it came from. So like expanding on the point, what's my system to designing? I look at those two things. I look at human history, but I look at like the now. And like human history is kind of like romanticized because you're not there. So like beautiful, like, you know, like look at like William Turner paintings, like old art. It's where like now everything's a bit more like minimal and essential and, you know, like serves a function, has a bit no soul. I kind of like in a documentary sense showing that. So I like mix those two things up. Like like my latest collection, Extrospect, when we did the campaign shoot, I was looking at exploring ways to think. So like Extrospect was about making sense of the world in front of you. And like to me, making sense of the world in front of you, you need to have time to think. And so I was looking, okay, like how is thinking accepted in society now versus how is thinking accepted in society then? And like back then I was looking at like the Greek times of Socratic thinking, where like it was governed by philosophy. So like if you committed a murder, you would have to the panel, I need to read about this more, but like a group of people would explore the reason why you did it. So on like a tribunal on what grounds is it justified? It's where like now it's like, you know, it's self-defense, but if it's not, it could be in America it's a bit more like accepted for self-defense, but here like you could still get done for a certain level of degree, like manslaughter, or, you know, murder in the acts of self-defense, because it'd be like a short term. But then it was like through reason, you know, they did a burglary, but through what reason did they do the burglary? Is an acceptable reason. And you know, but now it's not like we're not governed through reason, or I'm not saying it's right. I'm just speaking objectively, but like we have to like go to therapy in order to think. We have to pay to think. And so I was looking at photographs of like people, you know, like philosophers, and like the way philosophers are remembered now through statues. Go to V&A, what the pose is, it's like this. And then I was looking at stock photos of people at therapy, exact same poses. Crazy. So there's like a link between the now and then through like visual communication, but like in the realms of which we think are different. Crazy things to think about. Ironic, no pun intended. But you know, so that's my system, is like I take like those, I look at the then, I look at the now, and I put them together and put a message forward. That's the route. That's the.
Do you know what, Jack? It's a lot, but thank you for taking us through that. Yeah. As I said at the beginning of the conversation, that's something I wanted.
It is a lot, but like I've done a few lectures, and like I think people like get afraid when things are dense. But man, the world's a complicated place. Let's not lie about it. And like sometimes
if people
want to
hear it, they want to hear it.
No, exactly. But that is the way it is. But like it doesn't have to be digested like that in depth to be attracted or to be appealed by the brand. But that is the system I've built, which is a very layered approach to what I believe makes great design, meaningful design, more importantly.
Speaking of that depth, yeah, like obviously at the end of the day, we're all humans, so our resources limited to a certain degree, yeah.
Sure.
When you're putting that much thinking into your designs, yeah, how are you able to kind of balance the business side of stuff?
Well, it's a lot of thinking, but like you don't necessarily put all of that into one product. You put it over a course. Like it's like if someone, I always think it's easier to talk about this in music because music is naturally more popular and widespread. no one talks their whole message through one song. They have to make an album. They make a range of albums over a number of years. I see fashion as no different. The amount of words I've just said throughout this podcast is no different than Jay-Z's album. In a word count, I'm just saying that like it comes across as dense, but it's not actually as dense as you think. You've just got to be willing to think and be open in order to embrace the idea that there is something that's quite considered in the room. Then like, oh yeah, this is my brand, this is my slogan, because it's about like lifestyle and shit.
Before we started, you said something that piqued my interest quite a bit, where I think when we were speaking about the depth, and don't let me misquote you, but you kind of alluded to the fact that you haven't necessarily seen the value in it yet. I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but then I hopped up and I was like, yeah. Remember when I was like, you haven't seen it yet.
Value in what, sorry?
In kind of like this much substance.
I don't know if that was what...
Then maybe it must have been something else. But even from me saying that, like, I think it's important to talk about that as well, though, because you kind of alluded to like other types of brands that, not to say, let's not say they don't have substance, because substance again is subjective, innit?
Oh look, man, I used to be really like, and I'm still internally like a little bit of a hater. I think everyone has that in them, but like it took those brands to exist for me to inform myself what it is that I want to put into the atmosphere. You know, so if I'm like if there wasn't a lot of brands that I felt like didn't put intrinsic meaning on their product, well, you know, that's in my head a gap in the market.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I want there to be more people and individuals that like have this level of thinking, because I think that makes more meaningful products, which I think for young people, that is the most sustainable thing you can do, because sustainability is a massive subject at the minute because of the environment. But like, at what point does sustainable come into topic? And like, sustainability isn't just about how you produce the clothes, it's the meaning you put onto product. Because if you had a hoodie, I think like, think about sentimental objects. Think about like, let's say your mum or dad like passed something down to you. You know, it might be a cheap object, but it means a lot. You're never going to let go of it. You never, like, let's say it's a ring, you're never going to put a different ring on.
Big fact.
Why can't clothing can have that power? Like, how can I make a t-shirt be so valuable to the point that it's not about like, yeah, you're going to consume more, but you know, not as much. Speaking
of that, Jack, like the intrinsic value that Eliza, the brand, and the garments have, with that, what's the relationship when it comes to the quality of the clothing as well? Do you feel like almost like extra pressure? Like, does it kind of need to align? Do you get the question I'm kind of asking?
I think I get what you're saying, but I think it's more expectation than pressure.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because I think, you know, I luckily got taught in a way where I knew how to make a t-shirt beyond a Gildan. Do you know what I mean? So like, when you like learn beyond a certain point, it's very hard to go back on yourself. And like, I could do this and sell £25 t-shirts. The message will be the same. But there's also a thing where I like want people to have the best version of it. And I like have the skill. Like, I used to go to Portugal and go to factories, and like, I used to like liaison with the factories for ACW alongside like some of my colleagues. And I learned a lot through that. So it's like, you can also like inform your message through just like the way a t-shirt fits. Like my t-shirts, the sleeves are a little bit longer, the neckline's a bit tighter, it's a bit more boxier, and it's like I kind of don't try and push the idea of like trying to make people look sexier. It's just being at peace, man. It's just being at peace. Like, it's like religion, but like the religion's you, the individual. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what are your values? And like, I kind of merge those ideas. I want Eliza to be the individual uniform.
Would you say, this could be a leading question, yeah? I ask a lot of leading questions, but like, would you say when it comes to starting a brand for the young listeners or whatnot, would you say the message is the most important thing? And if not, what is important?
To me, it is, yes.
Okay, so
if I buy product from anyone, I like need to know the ethos behind it.
Okay, cool.
Like, it's as simple as that. The only brand I really consume out of this is Miyake, and I love it, like the history of. I'm gonna go into like Miyake is from Hiroshima. And like, okay, there's 3 Comme des Garçons, Yohei Yamamoto, and Izumi are considered like the founders of contemporary fashion because when something in their own country happened that was so bad, there's kind of like, you need hope, innit? You need hope in bad times. They kind of like presented that idea for an industry that got completely destroyed. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, started imagining, they started like, use it fashion, they like brought fashion into a place where it wasn't even just about like serving purpose anymore. It's about like dreams and ideas beyond what it looked like. And yeah, that's a massive, that's why I love Izumi so much. It's like a massive spiritualness about it that I think you can't, like, don't get me wrong, I think like would they have existed if the whole thing with Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened? Probably not.
Yeah.
But it takes that. And like in the same way as a lot of things are happening right now post-pandemic. Like, it was a bad time for a lot of people, so therefore a lot of like reactive things are happening, and that is, you know, honestly like why I had this idea for a long time, but I felt that the moment was now when that happened.
So in response to my question, you responded, so you would say the message is the most important. Like,
I think the world needs that more than anything right now. Yeah.
But I mean, not just in reference to Eliza. I mean, for let's say you're speaking to Joe Bloggs, who's 25, and he messaged you saying, "Yeah, I've had this thought and I want to start this brand." Other than just the message of the brand, what sort of advice would you give them? You know what I mean, what things should they think about?
Well, like, understand everything that you're putting on, like onto paper. So like, if someone if you interviewed me and talked to me through any piece of clothing, I could tell you everything about it, and it's not. I can understand the skepticism that it could be a marketing tactic, but to me, it's really not. How sustainable that's going to be in the long term, I can't answer. I think like in the long term, my meanings will stretch a little bit. So like, to talk about one subject, I would probably like convey that message through like a collection rather than one t-shirt. You know, I think that's natural. But yeah, I think you should be able to talk about your stuff. Why does a logo look like this? What does it mean? And like, if you can't answer that, I don't think it's meaningful. Do you know what I'm saying? And like, yeah, that is harsh as fuck, but that's my ethos, and like that's what I put on myself, and I think that makes better products. I think that makes more sustainable products. And if you can like match the concepts and the meaningfulness with actually making good quality product, I think you're just hitting a home run. Like, there's a lot because there's a lot of brands that go like very conceptual and meaningful, but the product quality is shit. So you can't wear it, falls apart. It's not like, and so therefore it's a double-edged sword in that respect. So like, I'm trying to hit this like really sweet spot in the middle where I do aspire to go runway. I do aspire to go high in fashion, not because of price point, not because I want to make money, but I just think like I can maximize my creative potential in there. There's a threshold and creativity that you can go to if the price point of your t-shirt's £30 per unit. But if I mark the t-shirt up at £60 or £80, I can do a lot more to it, practically speaking, which is only better for you, the consumer. But it's also good for me because there's a lot of like self-fulfillment in the creative side of it, you know. Yeah.
Speaking of the messaging still, of course you kind of showed us, you did show us how you articulate the messaging through the logo, through the designs, everything. One thing that I think is important for us to speak about is the experiential side of things, because I feel like you and Nosa, you put a lot of effort into really getting that message across.
Shout out Nosa.
Yeah, big up Nosa, in a way that works in reality, which is difficult in itself. So talk about that side of things.
Well, I think the experience side is important for us because a reminder to ourselves is when we're working on this is that fashion is the vessel, but it's not the end point.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we have to experience everything through clothing. It can be through a variety of mediums. And obviously, you know, like a lot of my self-fulfillment's through clothing. Well, like Nosa's an amazing DJ. He's the ears of the operation while I'm the eyes of it. He's not trying to step on my toes and what I'm good at. I'm not trying to step on his toes. Like, we respect that and we trust each other and we like heighten, you know, like use what our strengths are and create something beautiful out of it. And we've done, as of yet, we've done we've done 3 installations. 2 of them were parties and the third one was a pop-up. And we just want people to feel more. Like, in the same way as you go to a film and like just feel like the most important part of a film is when you leave the cinema. And like I can own, it's probably like 2 or 3 films that I've like felt really strongly about afterwards, where it's like, wow, that was a lot. Like, love, there's something about that that's very addictive. Not everyone's into it. Like, some people just want to like come out the fucking cinema.
Oh, that was sick.
That was such a beautiful ending.
Yeah.
No, man, I'm quite a realist. I love dark like thrillers. Like, my favorite film was Old Boys. It's a Korean film, but it's the twist is out of this world. But it's like beautiful in its own way. Like, it's just very strong. It's like, wow, that makes me think I need to sleep on that. So I think through like social experiences in spaces where like you don't experience it yourself, you experience it with like a group of people, I just think there's something there that you can't experience just through clothing by itself. That is why people do runway shows. Of course, there's a business side to runway shows, but at the same time, like, you get an energy of a brand more by doing a runway show. But because it's not just about the clothing, we like to do experiences that are, because that is what Eliza is as well. Eliza is like about conveying a feeling of peace, tranquility, but also it's quite intense.
I love the fact that you used those words, because obviously I came to the last pop-up.
Yeah.
Bruv, did you clock what I was doing there?
Nothing.
Exactly,
but that's nice.
That's what I'm saying. That's what was good, because you made me feel like that. Like, I ended up just sitting on the sofa chatting to Nosa's bedroom that I met on that day. So I just want to big up you guys and being able to do what you set out to do.
So like so we did a pop-up in August, which was like the first we put up for a number of reasons. Number one, the main reason was that because our clothing is at a slightly higher price point, we understand that people need to like try it before they buy it. It's building consumer trust. We have great product, but we need to show it. Cool. Opportunity. That's why we do it. Second reason is that we had 2 parties before that were great, and like it was a very unique experience from like a party standpoint and an installation standpoint. Like, the first installation we did, we had these glasses inside. We like built these walls out of felt, inputted LEDs into them so it looked like a starry night. We smoked it all out, and that in itself was cool. But the greatest thing about it were the glasses that we made these, like, they're called diffraction glasses, and so these diffraction glasses split white light into all colors of the rainbow. And so to the conversations that we've been having, it's like, how do you, like, what separates t-shirt 1 from t-shirt 2 if they're the same quality? Well, meaning. So what we did was I had this like thought in my head. It was like, well, I can't change the object, but what I can change is the way you see it. So like, I'm not trying to do anything new, but what I'm trying to do that's new is change the way you look at it. I'm like trying to tap into human psyche. And yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah, people can say that's pretend. I couldn't give a fuck. That's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm going to attempt. And I want people to do that as well. I encourage that, but I'm going to spearhead that change in fashion. And so when you put these glasses on, I didn't do anything to change the space. You're just looking at it differently, and it's amazing. It's beautiful.
Sorry, Jack, I'm going to have to cut you there, yeah?
Yeah.
You know how you said spearhead that change within fashion, yeah?
Yeah.
So do you feel like Eliza is the only brand doing what you're attempting to do right now?
Yeah, 100%. I don't like, and I have quite a good group of people, friends from like not just here obviously, but like from North America, Asia, and I'm yet to see someone doing the same. But that's a typical thing. But tell me who conceptually is doing the same thing as what I'm doing right now.
Can't think of any, mate. I told you that before. But
I don't like. It's not an ego thing. I actually want there to be more. But it's just. But that is like for me the proof that there needs that. And so therefore, if I'm the only one conceptually trying to go forward with this approach, I'm spearheading it.
Speaking of that, then what does the future of Eliza look like then? And the reason I ask that is because
more in real life.
Alright, cool. Let me qualify that question a bit. Yeah.
Sure.
So the reason I ask that is because there's no one else doing what you're doing, quote unquote. It means you haven't got anything to look at to kind of, what's the word? Not necessarily predict, but like compare the journeys and be like, cool, at this point we're going to be here, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So like, where do you see Eliza in like the next 5, 10, 15, 20
Are you talking
years?
like practically?
Whatever way you want to internalize that.
I mean, okay, what do I aspire within the next? I want to, like, Eliza from day one has always aspired to go into retail, just because naturally, like, at a price point like this in like a very weird economic climate, it's very hard to get like the direct to consumer growth that like a streetwear brand or like high fashion brand at a cheaper price point would have. Yeah. You're more willing to take an L on a £20, £25 t-shirt that might not fit you. £50, it gets a bit different. And as it gets more and more, you don't want to take the risk. I don't take the risk. I'll never buy something over £100 online unless I knew that it would fit me. And I understand that. So like retail is an important thing for me because it needs to be experienced in person in order for someone to understand it. And like every time, the greatest thing about having a studio is that every time someone comes in, they're fascinated by it. They love it. They get it. Because some of our shit looks mundane. It does, but there's a reason why. It's so informed. Like there's such a system in place that it has to look like that. And that's the best thing about it. And I'm fine with that. Not for everyone, but it's for me. And I think that level, that type of design should exist. Yeah, exactly. And like the pop-up was proof of that. The pop-up was the most we've ever sold. I love the kind of people it attracted, which was not people on their fashion shit. It was like-minded individuals from different walks of life. And not only was that in itself nice, everyone was talking to one another.
It was nice in there.
It was like really beautiful. You know, I mean, we tried to do everything to visit. Our pop-up was in a library, a place called Reference Point, which to anyone that doesn't know Reference Point, look it up. It's a great space to do research and like learn. But they also, you know, like there was chess getting played at one point. We like covered all the furniture with white cloth because we wanted to take away the value of the objects and focus on the people in the space instead. We made this like custom scaffolding rail box that you could walk through in the middle, just so like everything felt seamless and a lot less boxy. We like scented the room with this like, it was like a sea salt scent, which, you know, I guess like narcissistically reminds me of being in Brighton, which is on the beach to me, which was one of the freest times I lived in. And yeah, people felt very appealing. Like some people were like, oh god, like smelling it's so nice, it smells like bread. It literally was, the scent was fresh air. That's the best way I can describe it. And that's such a like nice thing to put through, you know? Yeah, so yeah man, that's the
Hey Jack.
That's the crack.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something that's gonna get on your nerves still.
I'll do it, go.
We're gonna have to round up soon, you know.
Yeah, that's fine.
But what I was also gonna say that, but I can't like, we could talk forever, you know.
Oh, 100%.
Because I have so many questions in my head.
I have a lot of questions for you as well.
I'm thinking we're gonna have to do a part 2 or something.
Yeah, I'm up for.
But what I was gonna say is, I think this question will be this will be like one of my last questions, yeah. Like, so the goal of Eliza, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you believe you lot are gonna be able to do it? And when I say that, like, because when I first spoke to you about everything,
yeah,
I'm like, bruv, this is a tall order. Like, to change human behavior through the medium of like fashion, quote unquote, through any medium is difficult. It's ironic.
Yeah, but it's like, not the end point. Like I would love to go into teaching of some sort when I'm older, because I just think I naturally lend to that. Yeah. Like university lecturing, research. I would love to write a book at some point.
So in terms of the goal you have for Eliza, it's not like it's just Eliza, it's more Jack.
No, but it's all, you get what I mean? It's all synonymous, because like Nosa also has aspirations for the brand, and there's a lot of like his personal experiences that also come into that. It's just all one thing. My work life, my passions, Nosa's passions, Eliza is like an incubator for a lot of that stuff. We can't do all of it for Eliza. We can do a lot of it. And we're going to continue to do that. And like, I'm sure in 5 years time, we'll probably have something else on top of it. Eliza might close. Might have a new project, because we can do that in the same way as Pyrex became Off-White. We can do what we want. Like, all what I know is that I'm really excited to go through whatever is going to come forward. But I do have aspirations for this to go global. I'm South London. I have a lot of patriotism towards South, but like, it's not just for South Londoners. It's a global. The story, the narrative is a global mindset.
Universal.
It's not defined by language or a country's border or a culture or the color of someone's skin. It's resembled by mindset. It's ethos wear. That's what I call it. That's the last 10 years. It's been about blurring the lines between streetwear and luxury fashion. It's like building, you know, like abolishing the class. It's all about like, you know. Where like for me it's like, okay, well like now what does it mean? How do we like put intrinsic value into that? And like mindset is the one thing that you can't put a class on it. You can't put a price on mindset. So to me, that's got to spread. It takes a long time. So like 5 years, probably going to be doing the same thing, but it's going to be a bit bigger. It's going to be more stores. I would aspire to like if in the future there could be a mono store, that would be great. I would love to do pop-ups. I'd love like Nosa to be able to take this and like create like sonic installations. I can do physical installations. It's a great facility to change the way people think a little bit, even if it's just for like a minute. Like I know at the party we did with the installation with the glasses, no, you got to understand, people have only seen things different through like Instagram filters. And like, the amount of times I saw people and it's like they've seen a new color for the first time, but like through their own eyes, it's a really powerful thing to go through, and that's us.
Nothing like IRL in real life.
IRL over URL.
That's funny. There's no way you thought of that just now.
No, I've got a t-shirt design that kind of says it.
Oh, okay.
I've like made URL as one person and IRL as another person, and they're fighting each other. Yeah.
Do you know what, Jack? I feel like this convo is a watershed moment, bro. And when I say that, I mean, no, God willing, man. And I feel like it will be, because I feel like everything we've discussed, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot more we can discuss. I feel like once you, the brand, Nosa, achieve what you achieve, I think people are going to come back to this and be like, wow. Like,
and I'm not going to sit here with arrogance thinking that, oh yeah, this is 100%. I don't know, but I'm never going to know if I don't try it.
Facts.
And not only, I'm not trying it, I'm doing it.
I think we might name the episode that, you know.
What?
I'm never going to know if I don't try it. I love sound bites like that.
Yeah. Motivational quotes.
Yeah, man, I'm on that stuff. But
no, it's relatable, isn't it? But like, I think a lot of people want change, but not a lot of people want to be the person to make change happen. And like, I want a change. I want there to be a change in an industry and a culture that I really care about. But if no one's doing it, I'm gonna have to do it. And like, whether I'm the best at doing it, well, TBC in it. It's not gonna stop me from doing it. And like, if someone is even more talented than myself and those, man, fucking hats off to them. Not only would I not see them as a competitor, I'd fucking encourage them. And like, that's there's a bigger picture at play. Of course, yeah, that's how I feel about it. And
people remember the term ethos wear.
Ethos wear, ethos led fashion. Like, it's just your belief is, in a lot of my, I won't go on any longer, but like in a lot of my photography through the brand, like there's a key pose that we do, which is like having your arms out, which is kind of like is a slight religious reference to Jesus being on the crucifix. But like the modern take on it is like, that's just about you like opening your arms to the world, confronting it. The world is a really hard place. So if you put your arms out, you're preparing yourself to be vulnerable towards what comes at you. You're not if you do that, you're protecting yourself. If you're doing that, someone could come and punch you. Yeah, but you got to be prepared for the punches. Don't escape.
Or someone might come hug you.
Yeah, exactly. There's risk in it, and with risk is reward.
Big fact.
My guy.
What on the same
page? No, but this is what, like, everything here is it is complicated. It's a lot of layers to it, but when you like really, really break it down, it makes complete sense.
It does.
Like, see the brand like this. Yeah. You do not go into a classroom knowing everything they're about to teach you. So I don't expect anyone to understand it straight away. But if you're curious, which is why I made Eliza Truth, you're going to learn a lot more and understand it. And everyone that follows Eliza Truth and then comes to the pop-up gets it. They absolutely get it. And not only do they understand it, they understand it to a level where they can share it with other people. And I'm not just talking about intellectuals. I think design is really disconnected. I think it's more or less about, I want to make sure my mum understands it and my younger sister understands it and the designer understands it. Yeah, sorry.
Hey, Jack, I can't, everything you're saying, I'm thinking, I would ask that.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
As I said, no, don't apologize, bro. As I said, we're going to do a part 2 for sure, bro.
Cool.
Maybe it might be in a different location. It could be in a different country. You never know. Like, it could be.
That would be fun.
That would be crazy, innit?
Yeah,
you never know. But one last question before we fully wrap up. You would have seen on all the other episodes. What's the one piece of advice you would give to an up-and-coming designer, somebody that wants to get into fashion? Internalize it however you want.
Okay, if you're young, and when I say young, I'm talking like 25 and under, I would highly advise that you work with people first. Realize someone else's dream before you try and realize your own. I'm telling you through my experience, if I didn't like work for ACW and work for my clients now, there's a lot of things I wouldn't have been able to have done now. I could not have done this at 20 full stop. Some people can, and some people are blessed with it. Well, I'm not that person. I couldn't have done it. So get yourself in the game through other people's ideas. Be open and don't say no, really. Yeah, that is what I would say to a young person.
Don't say no.
And think, I guess, and in general piece of advice is that thinking is the most important thing to do. Write pen to paper. Thinking is a form of doing. We're a culture built to do, but we now need to change the psyche and think more.
Jack shape, man.
So,
hey. If you ever want to take in future episodes on the go, you can also find us on Apple Music and Spotify. When you get there, please, if you don't mind, leave us a 5-star review and whatnot. It will definitely help. And yeah, as I always say, keep it locked.